Welcome guys, it's your boy Ty here, and I'm going to be with my friend Tracy here, who's going to be taking us through the lesson today. Welcome to Learn Extra Live. We're doing grade 10 physical science. Tonight's show is brought to you by Liberty, and last week we covered longitudinal waves with Tracy, and tonight our topic is going to be sound, which I'm pretty excited about. Tracy, can you tell us more about sound?
I'm with you on this one. I love sound. We're going to be looking at pitch and loudness and how sound's made and how it affects us and where we use it, besides just the music, but that's my thing as well, is the whole music issue, so I'm quite excited. I think it's going to be a good show.
So guys, please send us your questions, anything relating to the topic. Guys, Facebook us, tweet me, and guys, by the way, eventually if we do not get to your question today, we will get to it, and if you're having difficulty with sections, we will get through that later on during the year. And next week, our topic is going to be electromagnetic radiation. Lots of you have been asking about the schedule, so if you are in a group and working together, which you should be doing, guys, make sure next week is going to be electromagnetic radiation. So the show tonight, we're going to start off with a lesson on sound. So guys, after the break, we're going to go through an example or two, and then lastly, we're going to tackle a question on the topic. There are lots of ways to get hold of us, so guys, make sure you Facebook me, Twitter me, because I'm going to be your social media host for tonight, so make sure you go to www.facebook.com/learnextra, and if Twitter's your thing, make sure you tweet me at learnextra. So while you guys are watching, make sure you shoot us off questions, and you will make sure that we get around to them at the third part of the show. So guys, also, don't forget, I still have Casio calculators that I'm going to be giving away for the best post on the Facebook page. So the winner will be announced tomorrow on the page. So guys, make sure you're on the page asking, and I'll be here throughout the whole time helping you guys out. And after the break, Tracy's going to be taking us through the lesson. So make sure you guys stay tuned, yeah? So welcome back, Mindsetters. We're going to be doing grade 10 physical science, and the lovely Tracy is going to be taking us through this awesome subject, which is going to be sound. Now that I'm over my first day jitters, we're going to do this right, and we're going to have some fun today. Tracy, take it away.
Thanks, Ty. I'm going to like having you around. Okay, guys, we're going into sound. Now, sound is a nice carry on from last week's lesson, which was on longitudinal wave. And if you were watching last week, you remember we played, I got Indy to sit on the floor, and we played with the slinky a little bit. And I showed you this graphic last week as well, but I just want to show it again just to remind you of what we're talking about. So this is actually quite a nice one because it shows sound being produced by a speaker, like the one in your TV or in your sound system, or even the little speakers, headphones you use for your iPods and that sort of stuff, okay? And it vibrates, and that vibration causes a longitudinal wave, because remember, what it causes is the air particles move, and some of the particles come close together, some move far apart. And remember, when they're close together, we call it a compression. When they're far apart, we call it a rarefaction, okay? And this creates a nice longitudinal wave, which in this particular case is sound. There's not too many other longitudinal waves that we actually talk about, but we also spoke last week about changing sound into a transverse wave. This is actually going to become really important a little bit later on, where we realize that a compression is almost the same as a crest, and a rarefaction is the same as a trough, okay? And it just represents places of movement from our rest position, okay? Because working with our longitudinal wave, it can be quite difficult to see amplitude, which a sound wave has, or to see wavelength or that sort of thing, because it's quite difficult to get to that point of, well, if we looked at our first one a little bit, we go, where's the rest position? That's quite hard for us to tell if we have no frame of reference for it. So it's quite difficult for us. In this particular diagram I've got, it's quite easy to find our points that are in phase, because the 2 points before the two compressions, they're nicely, it's quite clear that they're in phase, so it's easy to find my wavelength. But when you look at the diagram that I have at the bottom, that's far more difficult because they're not quite as nicely packed as the ones at the top. So that doesn't really help us. So changing it into our transverse wave makes life a lot easier for us. And that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, the thing about the sound is sound doesn't have a constant speed. We did a couple of questions last week, and we kept changing the speed of sound. We went from 330 to 343, and that's because it depends on the medium. Sound is very medium driven. You can't hear sound in a vacuum. I did ask that last week, but we can hear it in solids, liquids, and gases, okay? Now, this is just a brief, this isn't by any means a complete table of the different things we can hear sound through, but for example, in aluminium, sound, just normal sound, like if I was talking, 6,420 meters per second. That's very, very fast. In a brick, it goes at 3,650. In glass, 5,100. In seawater, though, now we get into liquids, it's only 1,530, so it's quite a big drop. And then we get to air. But if you look at the table really closely, you'll notice that I have two parts. One at 0 degrees, and it's 331, and one at 20 degrees, which is 343. That's really, really important. Now, this table brings us to two conclusions. Number one, the speed of sound is dependent on the medium, where it travels fastest through a solid, slowest through a gas, and that's simply because in a solid our particles are really, really close together. And remember, for a longitudinal wave, the particles come, they almost got to bash into each other, they move on. So they come in, if they're close together in a solid, then it's easy for them to pass the energy on. Whereas in a gas, they're much further apart, so it takes a longer time for the energy to be passed on from one part to another. The second thing we can see here is that it's dependent on temperature. All right, so in hot air, 20 degrees, which isn't really that warm, but compared to 0, it's very hot. It changes by 12 meters per second. That's very significant. What that also means for us, for example, is in winter, on a clear winter day, you actually tend to hear sound much better than on those really hot, stinking days. More up in Joburg than in the coast because we don't have as much humidity, and the humidity plays a role, but the sound doesn't travel quite as nicely when it's as hot either, okay? Because of the quality. This speed is not quality. Be careful. Just because sound travels in water at 1,531 meters per second doesn't mean I'm going to hear it with the same clarity as I hear it when I'm listening in air. That is very, very important, and that's because of the way our ears are designed. We are not designed to hear things through solids or to hear through liquids. Now, a nice thing you see sometimes in the old movies is, you know, in the old westerns and stuff, you see the baddie put his ear on the railway tracks. He wants to hear if the train's coming, because he'll hear it on the track far, far quicker than he'll actually see the train, no matter how far away it is. They'll hear it on the track first. Plus, he'll feel the vibrations, which definitely helps. Now, we get into the fun part of today. We're going to look at the characteristics of sound, and this is the part that I'm really excited about, because when we look at sound, we will use a thing called an oscilloscope, which is what this piece of equipment is. And what an oscilloscope does is it changes a longitudinal wave into a transverse wave for us. And then we can look at, so for example, we can look at, here I've got 4 different waves. They have different wavelengths and they have different amplitudes, so they have different frequencies. This is quite important. What do we mean by that? So now I'm going to go over to my bunch of toys, and I have a wonderful new friend who's going to help me out here today. And first toy I'm going to show you, I'm hoping you guys can see it. We'll go to my cameraman. Let's make sure it's on notes, we don't want to sound, is we have a metronome, and I'm hoping you can see the moment the sound is at 441 hertz, okay? Now you can't hear it because I put it on mute, but it's quite annoying, okay? But now, I want you to listen carefully. I'm going to change, can you hear it's going up? It's getting a little more annoying, okay? And I definitely can't sing at this pitch. Can you, Ty? Not quite.
Not quite yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. So we're changing the pitch, but I'm not changing the loudness. I'm going to go back down. That was making it lower. And if you look at I'm not sure if you can see the values, okay? But that's 400. Oh, no, it's not changing them, sorry. But you can see the notes are changing, okay? And then this only goes so far and goes back to normal. But I can change the volume. So this is quite soft. I can make it louder. And I can make it softer. It's a little annoying, but louder and softer. I haven't changed the pitch. Okay, that's very important. So Okay, now, what we've done is this was an electronic version of it. So we're going, oh, yeah, it's electronic. Anyway, other important toys. These are my toys, okay? These are the things I really like playing. So we have these. I'm hoping some of you, at least when you were little, you played with these as at primary school, and you all realized, because you loved doing this, and you probably drove your parents absolutely muggy when you brought these home, is when you hit it, you get a certain sound from it. Now that sound comes from the fact that I'm hitting it and I'm causing the metal to vibrate. Now both these triangles give me different sounds because this is a much thicker metal, so it's heavier. This is a much thinner metal, and it gives me the sound is tinier, the pitch has changed, but it's still vibrating, and I can change that by holding it. So I'm changing the pitch, I'm changing the sound, I'm taking it away completely by holding it, because I'm not allowing it to vibrate. The difference is, that's quite a nice sound, I quite like that one. And then this one, that's quite a high pitch, it can get a bit annoying after a while. But I can make the sound, same pitch, but softer by just tapping it, but it's the same pitch. I can make it louder, or I can make it softer. It's a little harder to hear with the triangles. This one might be a bit easier to hear. If I hit it hard, I get a loud sound. If I hit it soft, I get a soft sound. That's loudness. The pitch, the note it's at, is the same. These are nice because you can hear that's quite a high pitch, so that would be your upper end of the musical scale. Okay, now we've got, these are claves, these are nice, I like these as well, because I can change, they also they don't ring as much. Why? Because they don't vibrate as much. So my metal, when I use the triangle, the metal continues to vibrate, because that's just what metals are. These are made out of wood, and different ones made out of different types of wood will give me a different sound. And I can change that sound depending on how much I hold it. So if I hold it really tight, it makes it a much duller sound, almost lowers the pitch, but I'm not letting it vibrate. If I hold it very softly, I can make it ring a little bit more, all right? Then we get to the fun things, okay? And these are the ones that really absolutely drove your parents. And that's my bongos, okay? Now, bongos, these are, you can hear they're got a slightly higher pitch, but these are nice because if I hit it hard, I can make it loud. If it's soft, it's not as loud, but it's the same pitch. What am I making it do? When I hit it, now it's a bit harder to see because these are still, they tight on it, because the tighter they are, the better they vibrate, the faster they vibrate. So I can make this a much higher pitch by making this much tighter, because then I make it vibrate. It doesn't give as much space to vibrate, so it makes it very, very quick. And the faster it vibrates, the higher the note is. Okay, now it's a bit dull because it's because it's sitting on a table, so we're not allowing all the sound to come through. But I can make it really soft, because so if I hit it soft, and I can change the sound, very dull, much more bassy, because I'm changing the way it's vibrating. Okay, same with my little one. And we don't often hold this one because it's quite nice to have this one ring more. Okay, so all of these instruments, and it's nice with percussion, all have the air around them vibrating. And even your instruments like guitars, keyboards, which are just electronic versions of pianos, they all use the same concept, that we're making something vibrate. And that vibration causes our sound. Now we're going to go back to the board and quickly just talk about what we were actually looking at. Now, if I look at my first waveform and I look at my second waveform, okay, if I look at my two waveforms, over here we've got, it's quite low, and over there it's high, okay? This one is my soft sound, small amplitude, okay? So over here, this is a soft sound, or it's not very loud. This one is loud, okay? Now, what's the difference? The amplitude. Okay, so loudness has to do with amplitude. And this is also why when you listen to your earphones, why when they're so loud, it's actually so bad for your ears. Because this amplitude means there's lots of energy, causes lots of pressure on your eardrums. Very, very bad for you. So your parents are right to tell you to turn it down. Okay? If I compare these two waveforms, okay, this one's got a long wavelength, so it's got a small frequency. Short wavelength, high frequency. The bottom wave, this is my high pitch. Okay? That's a high pitch. So that's that annoying sound that makes you want to screech your ears because it's so high. These two sounds would be the same amplitude, same loudness, but you might experience them slightly different because this would be a low pitch sound. So this is a loud, low pitch sound. Okay, and I'm writing sideways now, but that's okay. This is a loud, high-pitched sound. This is a soft, low-pitched sound, and this is a soft, high-pitched sound. Okay, so what do I need you to get from this? And this is the important thing, is this. Pitch is related to frequency, and loudness to amplitude. That's the important thing here. Be very careful. Just because for a lot of us, if we're not into music or we don't play a musical instrument, and there's lots of us who do that, it's difficult sometimes to hear the difference. And even, I have to be honest, I know some musicians who don't actually know the difference, which is a little scary sometimes, because they think if it's loud, then it's good, but it isn't always the case. It's the pitch that's important. Correct, Ty?
Definitely.
Yeah, we want it to sound good too. Now, this is quite a nice, I got this because it's a nice diagram, because now I've got two waves on top of each other, and the green one is a low pitch, soft sound, because it's a long wavelength, but it's small amplitude. My blue wave is a high pitch, loud sound, high amplitude, high frequency. Okay, so you've got the difference. Frequency has to do with pitch. Amplitude has to do with loudness. Some of your teachers might be going through decibels and a scale of sound. We're not going to do it because it's actually not examinable in the CAPS. It's just nice for completeness, but we're not going to worry too much about it. Why is sound important though? The applications. And there's three very, very, very important applications. The first one is ultrasound. Now, the most common way of using ultrasound is for what I've got on the screen for us, and that's to show us pictures of babies. Okay, so any expectant mother and any expectant father gets very excited when they see their baby for the first time, and it's really nice because it's a very safe way to look at the formation of a baby. You can't use x-rays because x-rays are extremely dangerous, and we're going to deal with that next week. But what ultrasound does is it sends through a very, very high frequency sound. It's usually above 20,000 hertz, ranges even to about 50,000 hertz. I can't remember exactly for ultrasound. And it sends, there's a little machine that the doctor puts on the mommy's tummy, and it sends through sound waves that then get bounced off the baby's bones and tissues. Some goes through the bones and tissues and comes back a little bit later. And that little piece of equipment that the doctor's using picks up the reflected sound and translates those reflections into a picture. Okay? Now I know I'm going through a phase where I have lots of friends who are pregnant, so I see these quite often. This is a really nice picture because you can see quite a bit of detail, but there are times when I sort of have to ask for a little bit of an explanation because I don't know if I'm looking at a foot or a hand, but this is quite a nice one and it's quite a lot of detail. It's very similar to the ones which has become quite popular, which is your 4D scans, where I think it's at about 6 months they can do a 4D scan of a baby, and that means you get it's almost like looking at a picture of the baby. It's actually quite freaky. Where else do we use it? Echolocation. Not my favorite animal in the world, but it's a bat. Okay, they scare me a little, because we all know they have vampire connotations. But anyway, those are all just stories. But in a bat, bats are basically blind, and what a bat does is, and dolphins do exactly the same, they send out an extremely high-pitched sound, and then they wait to hear the sound get reflected back to them. And bats always fly with their mouths open. They don't have ears, they fly with their mouths open, and they get the sound in their mouth. And then their brains are able, in microseconds, work out how long it took for the sound to leave them, to come back, and then they know how far an object is. And they know whether it's a hard object, whether it's food, whether it's an insect, which I just find absolutely amazing. But we have taken this echolocation and we have converted it into sonar, okay, which is sound and sound, navigation, and ranging. Now, what sonar does is essentially the same thing, and ships do this, submarines do the same. It's a nice way for us to measure the bottom of the sea, to see what the bottom of the sea looks like, because remember, sometimes the sea is far too deep for a human to actually go down and take photographs of it, because we can't stand the sort of pressure that's involved. So the ship will send out a sound signal. They know how fast the sound goes in the water, looking at the temperature of the water, how much salt's in the water, because that definitely affects it. And then they have machines which then pick up the reflected sound. And just like with the bat, it converts that sound into a picture. So it's all done electronically, which is quite nice, because I don't think I could do that. And we get to that later. And we are done, actually, Ty, with all the theory, and we're ready to do some problems. So we'll do that later.
So, guys, make sure you stay tuned. And remember, make sure you hit me up on Facebook and on Twitter. Put in your questions, guys. Ask. That's why the platform is there. So make sure you remember www.facebook.com/learnextra. And if Twitter's your thing, make sure you @learnextrame. Cool? So make sure you guys stick around. We'll be coming back. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Learn Extra Live. We're doing grade 10 physical science, doing sound with Tracy. So guys, again, remember, Facebook me, tweet me, let me know what you're thinking, let me know what you're having problems with. If you don't understand anything, make sure you get to me. And right now, actually, Tracy, I had one of the questions from Charity. She wanted to find out, how do you measure sound through a substance?
Okay, I love that question. Charity, well done. It's not going to be ever asked in your exams anyway, but it's a good question, because everywhere along the way I'm telling you, well, you know, sound is the speed and that's how we work with it. It would be done through experimentation, and probably the easiest way to do it would be in terms of a school experiment, is you would have to measure, for example, we do it at athletics, is when we watch the starter, is you watch somebody shoot off a starter gun, you can see the smoke, and then you measure the time it takes for you to hear the sound. And as long as you know the distance, then you can measure the speed of the sound in that environment. And you could do the same with solids and liquids. It's obviously a little bit more difficult, but it would have to be through experimentation more than anything else. And at school level, luckily, we don't have to do that, so I'm quite happy. Okay, so I'm hoping that cleared it up for you, Charity. But now we're actually going to go into the fun part of sound. Okay, because sound is a wave, and what we need to remember is that a wave uses the wave equation, where V equals F lambda, which we've been using for 2 weeks already, so I'm hoping you have got this equation licked by now. Now, nice question, especially in Joburg. We've had lots of storms over the last couple of days, so it's just, I don't really like the lightning, but I'm a big girl, I'll be fine. Says to us, a lightning storm creates both lightning and thunder, and the thunder is because of the lightning, and you see the lightning almost immediately because light travels at 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. That sentence is just for completeness, grade 10s. It's just to put your question in context. It actually doesn't give you any useful information. Then it says, after seeing the lightning, you count 5 seconds. Now, those 5 seconds is important. It takes 5 seconds. And then you hear the thunder. Calculate the distance to the location of the storm. Now, what we need to do here, which I didn't put in the question, so you would need to ask your teachers, is I would need to tell you what the speed of sound is, because I can't calculate that without it. So I'm going to say to you, assume that the speed of sound is 330 meters per second. So straight away, I know my velocity is 330. And it takes, so my time is 5 seconds, and they want distance, they want x. We're going to call it delta x, that's x, because we're assuming it's going horizontally. And we go, well, you know what, this actually isn't anything different to what we're used to, because we know that speed equals distance divided by time. So velocity, or v, speed, is distance divided by time. Grade 10s, please, I'm begging you, especially as a teacher, is you tend to get all excited and you realize what equation you need to do. So you know you've got to put v equals delta x over delta t. Then you know you need a list somewhere, so you write down everything you've got, but you put it all underneath each other and everything just gets smushed, and it becomes so difficult to know what you're actually trying to do, and then you lose all your marks because mathematically it's incorrect. And as much as you don't want to hear it, your maths is still important in your science. Okay, my grade 11 learners today were quite horrified when I told, well, not my grade 11, my grade 9s, they were actually horrified when I told them that today. So I'm not sure if they're going to talk to me when I see them tomorrow. So, my velocity is 330, I want delta x, and my time is 5. Now it's a maths problem. I hope you realize all we're doing is taking the 5 over, so we'll get 330 times 5, and I've already worked it out because I can't do that in my head. 1,650 meters. That's still quite far, but that's just over a kilometer away from you. That's still dangerous, okay? So if you see lightning and hearing the thunder 5 seconds later, make sure you get indoors, okay? Not a good idea to be outside on a field playing soccer or rugby or cricket or any of those things. Just get inside, besides the fact that you're probably soaked by the time you get there. Okay, next question. Nice question, because this deals with sonar. Now they say to you, a ship sends out a signal to determine the depth of the ocean. The signal returns 2.5 seconds later. So what they've said to you, and I like to draw a picture, is the signal comes out from the ship. I'm not going to try to draw the ship because that's going to be embarrassing. Goes down and then comes back 2.5 seconds later. So the signal travels the depth of the ocean twice. Once going down, once coming back up. If sound travels at 1,450 meters per second, now this is different to the speed I gave you earlier. If we go back to the table I had, this is different to the table. That's because it's different conditions. How deep is the ocean at that point? There's lots of ways around this. Let's do, I think, the most logical. We want depth, so we want delta x. V equals delta x over delta t. My velocity is 1,450. We don't know x, we know the time I'm leaving at 2.5 seconds. So to get x on its own, I'm going to have to multiply both sides by 2.5. And once again, I have actually worked this out beforehand, because I also can't do that in my head. So let me just get my answer quickly. And we get 36,250. But this is the question, grade 10s. Is that the depth of the ocean? And I'm hoping there's at least one of you screaming at the TV going, no, because this is the depth, this is the distance the sound traveled to go down and come back up. So it's gone the distance twice, which means I need to divide that by 2. Now be careful here. You can't just go equal and divide it by 2 and hope for the right answer, because why would you just suddenly divide by 2? So we go, therefore, the depth is going to be 36,250 divided by 2, and we get 18,125 meters. And there's not a chance that as a human we could get down there without very specialized diving equipment, because that's 18 kilometers below the surface of the ocean. That is extremely deep, and in terms of pressure you couldn't do it. You'd have to use specialized diving equipment and actually have a special license for something like that. So we're not going to do that anytime soon. Now I have a nice question, because we've done calculations, and by now you're going, oh, is there anything else? Yes, there is. John speaks to Mary, and my grammar is terrible on that. So it would be like me speaking to Ty. Explain how the sound created by John is created by John, and how it is possible for Mary to hear the conversation. Now, this is quite nice, because I'm now asking you about how the sound is created. Everything we've done today, when I looked at the musical instruments, had to do with vibration. What's vibrating when you're speaking? Okay, your vocal cords inside your mouth. Not inside your mouth, inside your throat. Okay, inside your mouth. This is the reason why I don't sing, Ty. Okay, so your vocal cords vibrate. Now, if you can get them to vibrate nicely, you can make a nice musical sound. All right? But they vibrate inside your throat, and how you change that vibration determines what the sound sounds like. So John creates the sound by the vibration of his vocal cords. That, when he speaks it, causes the air around him to vibrate in the same frequency, because the vocal cords is the source. Then Mary's ears pick up the vibrations, and inside her ear, the eardrum vibrates at the same frequency, and that translates into the brain as sound, which your brain then converts into things that you understand, into words. Okay, that's of course if you speak in the same language, like English right now. So and you hear sound from me right now because I'm creating sound through my vocal cords, which gets picked up by the mic that I'm wearing, which then goes through a whole bunch of electronic processes, and then eventually ends up at your TV. The speakers in your TV, and this doesn't matter whether your TV is a flat screen, one of the older style, whether you've got surround sound, all of them, all the speakers work exactly the same. Sometimes they're just a little bit better hidden. There's got to be a little, almost like a drum inside the speaker that then moves backwards and forwards, and that backwards and forwards movement mimics my vocal cords. And that causes the air to vibrate. That vibration is what you hear in your ears, okay? And for a lot of people who are born deaf, it's the vibration part inside the ears that's the problem. They can't actually pick the vibrations up, okay? Then, one more question. Now, I put this one in deliberately because I realize we do a lot of calculations, but sometimes we don't. We need to also focus on the theory, and the theory is really important. We've done a lot of stuff to do with waves in the last 3 weeks. So, in every exam, you're going to get some one word or one term answers. Be careful when you answer, it says one word or one term. That means it could be more than one word. They're looking for a complete. They're giving you definitions and they want to know what it's defining. So if we say we have waves in the air caused by vibrations, well, we've just been doing that. I'm hoping you're all screaming at TV right now. That is sound. Okay? Waves that move in one direction, but the medium moves perpendicular. In other words, the wave is going from right to left, and my medium goes up and down. Who remembers what that is? I'm hoping you remember from 2 weeks ago. That's our transverse wave. Okay? Waves that move in one direction, but the mediums move parallel. That's exactly what we've been doing now, but you can't call it sound because they're not specifically looking for sound. They want their general name, which is longitudinal. Okay? Then we have the distance between two consecutive points of a wave that are in phase. Remember, consecutive points in phase means that they are the wavelength. Okay, that gives me my wavelength distance. Half the distance between the crest and the trough of a transverse wave. So if we draw it as a little picture, so there's my transverse wave. Half my distance means it's that little piece over there. Okay, and that little piece we called amplitude. Okay. Only a couple more to go. The distance a wave covers per interval. What's that? It's speed or velocity. Velocity is a better term, though often in this section, much to my horror, we interchange speed and velocity. And then the last one, the time taken for one wavelength to pass a point. Time for one wave means that it is period. It's definition. Okay, and if I was looking for frequency, I would have said to you, I would have said the number of waves to pass a point in 1 second. And Ty, I think we can go to a break. I think we've given them enough
info for now.
For now, absolutely. I think a little bit of info overload.
No problem.
Yeah.
So guys, again, keep messaging me, keep Facebooking me, and I see some really good questions. We'll probably get to that after the break. So guys, make sure you stay tuned. Remember, Facebook me at facebook.com/learnextra and tweet me at learnextra. And guys, stay tuned. We've got a lot of good questions coming up. So see you after the break. So welcome back, Mindsetters. It's your boy Ty here. And guys, I just want to say a quick thank you to Liberty. And also, guys, make sure you keep posting us questions, keep asking. If you don't know anything, I'm here to help you guys out with the lovely Tracy. And I actually have a good question here from Koketso. She says, Tracy, I'm lost. Why is V equals 330 meters per second and not 3 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second?
It's brilliant. Thank you, Koketso. I've decided Ty can come back because he calls me the lovely Tracy. Anyway, not that we don't miss Indy, we love her too. Anyway, so the question was, why is the speed of sound 330 meters per second and not 3 times 10 to 8? Now, Koketso, that's a nice question. And it's actually something that you've really got to get into your heads. Because I'm dealing with sound, and sound's a longitudinal wave that has to have a medium, so it's much slower. The 3 times 10 to the 8 refers to light. Light is a transverse wave, and is actually a very special type of transverse wave known as an electromagnetic wave, which we are going to deal with next week in quite a bit of detail. And because it's electromagnetic in nature, the way it's formed is slightly different. And also, light doesn't need a medium, which means it's not dependent on what it's traveling through for its initial speed. Okay, and this 3 times 10 to the 8 is considered the maximum speed of anything. But that's for light. I know it's a bit confusing because sound's also in the 300s type of thing, but sound is 1,000,000 times slower than light if you do it in a comparison. So be careful there. This value, the 3 times 10 to the 8, will be given on your information sheet as the speed of light. You will not be given a value for the speed of sound because it's not constant. Okay? So I'm hoping that sort of clears it up for her. Next time.
And we also have another question here from Buso. He wanted to ask, is velocity and speed the same thing?
It is in this section. It's why I don't like us actually calling it velocity and speed. It is the same thing in this section. It refers to the rate at which it's moving. So velocity, speed, in sound waves and light, we interchange the two. We're not overly concerned. You're just going to have to keep that in mind when we go to equations of motion and mechanics a little bit later on in the year, because velocity is going to have a slightly different definition to speed. So, but for now, speed, velocity, all the same thing. It means the same thing. It's got the same units. We're not worried about direction. So that's a good one to get in. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. And next.
Well, this one keeps popping up, and this seems like they want me to ask. So one of the students wanted to find out, how do we end up losing our voice?
I wish I knew. That's a biology question. And as a teacher, and actually I think my kids would love me to lose my voice. I really don't know, but the whole thing is when you get an infection, like with laryngitis and stuff, it affects the way your vocal cords move. So if your vocal cords can't vibrate, then you can't produce a sound. I mean, you've all heard somebody who's lost their voice and it sounds quite funny, and then you try not to whisper with them and they get quite upset with you, but it's because you can't vibrate. A nice test that you can do, and I'm sure Ty, as a musician, you've done this, is, you know when you ever listen to yourself from a tape and you go, do I really sound like that? I listen to myself sometimes, if I watch the show, which is quite sad, and you go, do I really, really sound like that? Have you ever wondered why you sound different? Because when you speak and you hear yourself, you hearing yourself through the outside, like everyone else does, but your voice also vibrates through your jaw and your head and your everything, so you sound different. When you're listening to yourself in a tape or from a recording, you're only hearing the outside vibrations. Now you can't hear yourself through your head, so you sound different. I don't think I like that sound personally, but it's just me when I listen to myself.
Ah, don't kid yourself. Your voice is lovely.
Oh, you can stay. Anyway.
So guys.
Yes.
Oh,
No, sorry. Do you have another question?
I'm going through the page. I'm just wanting to tell the guys again, keep posting those questions. If you have anything that you really are dying to find out about, post those questions and Tracy will be surely able to answer them. Tracy, I'm going to hand over to you again.
Okay, so you guys have been... All right, let's do a question. Let's actually look at the ear quickly. I have this here in terms of hearing, so we've been speaking about it quite a bit. I just want to... There we go. That's the one I wanted. Okay. This is quite a complicated diagram of the ear, and some of your teachers might be doing this with you in quite a bit of detail. You don't need to stress too much for matric. But this is taking, how do we hear? Okay, your ear on the outside, okay, its function, it's shaped like a cone, its function is to capture sound. That's what it does. So the sound comes along, here it's not drawn as a nice, regular wave, because that's normally not how we hear sound. The sound vibrates down our ear canal, and that's the external one, and then it gets to the, and I don't know why biologists can't give these nice names, tympanic membrane, otherwise known as your eardrum, which is over here, this part over here, okay? There's my eardrum. That eardrum literally is like the skin of a drum. It's able to vibrate, and it vibrates according to the sound it hears. That vibration moves a whole bunch of tiny little bones that sit over here, okay? And there's a hammer and a sickle and all sorts of funny names. We're not going to worry too much about it. And they vibrate with the eardrum. They then pass those vibrations into the cochlea. Okay, and I'm hoping some of you go, now that's a word we've heard before, because for a lot of deaf people, they do a cochlear implant. They take, because it's normally the cochlea that's defective, they take it out and replace it with an artificial one, okay, or they get it's like a organ donation sort of thing, but it's not quite, it's not really an organ. Inside your cochlea is a whole bunch of tiny little hairs. Each of those little hairs vibrate at a certain frequency. Now, I'm sure you've noticed, as your grandparents are getting older, that they seem to get harder and harder of hearing. Eventually, you're screaming at your grandparents, okay? Because as you get older, those little hairs start to die off. They get old. They stop working, okay? And some of you are doing that at a younger age because you have your earphones on and you're causing overuse. But each of those little hairs inside here, okay, they vibrate with a certain frequency. So they pick up the different frequencies that we can hear. And that then gets translated through nerves into our brain, and we translate that into sound. The cochlea is not as straight as this diagram indicates. It's actually wound up. It looks like a little shell, okay? And you don't want to do cochlear damage. When we talk about an inner ear infection, it's the liquid around here that gets infected, and that's also when you get all dizzy, because this is part of your balance system, okay? It's quite important that you have this part of your ear working properly, okay? I'm hoping that clears up. Anyone got a question for me yet?
Yes, we've got more questions here.
Yay.
Actually, let me check. Yes, you one day, please don't kill me if I get your name wrong. Wanted to say, hi, please could you tell me what's the frequency for hearing in the ear, as in?
That depends. Humans can hear between, I think it's about 20 hertz to about 20,000 hertz. Everyone's got a different range, and age plays a big role in that. It also depends. I have a friend who is blind in one eye, and as a consequence, his hearing is phenomenal. I mean, he's so good, he can actually tell you what frequency he's hearing at, and he's on the button, which is a bit scary. So it all depends. Everyone's different. You know, teachers, we have supersonic hearing, though. We're convinced, but everyone's different. But it normally ranges between about 20 and 20,000 hertz. That's average. Not too many humans can hear above 20,000. That's where it starts to get ultrasound, and if you can hear that, that's impressive. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then we also have another one here. She also, Tandeka, wanted to find out, does sound also get created by waves through a television?
Yes, in the speakers. So the picture gets, so in a TV screen, your picture gets made by a different concept altogether, and it's an electromagnetic thing with electrons and stuff, but the sound is exactly the same. It's the same way as sound coming through your CD player or your Walkman or even through a telephone, okay, in that we have an electrical signal that's going into the back of the TV. That electrical signal gets converted into the sound through the speakers. So it is the same function. It's the same way as we get for our normal speakers, Walkmans, radios, all of that sort of stuff. Depending on your TV, depends on the quality. Whether you have surround sound, it all depends on the quality. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well then, guys, keep posting your questions, because again, remember, this Casio is still up for grabs. Make sure you get in the best question in, and the winner will be posted tomorrow. And guys, keep speaking to me, keep sending me those questions, awesome questions coming in. And then what we're going to do now actually is, Tracy, if you could do me a favor, if you could just summarize the entire lesson so everyone can just get a full idea of what happened today.
Excellent. So what did we learn today? Sound is a longitudinal wave, okay? Very important. Longitudinal wave has compressions and rarefactions. Sound can then be converted into a transverse wave through something called an oscilloscope, and that gives us a nice picture of what the sound looks like. Now, what we didn't actually do, but I've just remembered we need to put it in here, is remember and we sort of looked at it when we did the one-word answers, is I mentioned that we have period down the bottom here. Period and frequency is still valid, okay? Whoops. Period and frequency still valid, okay? So sound still has a frequency, still has a period. Velocity, speed, same thing. Distance covers per unit time. Amplitude, sound waves definitely have amplitude, maximum displacement from the rest position. It's a little harder to see, which is why we actually convert it into a transverse wave, but it would be, you could even do your amplitude as being from the rest position to the middle of a crest. It's the easiest way to do it. Wavelength. Some waves have wavelength because it's a wave. It's distance between two consecutive points in phase. On a transverse wave, we normally do it, if we look at my little picture, which isn't the greatest, it would be from, and maybe I should actually have a color you can see, from a trough to a trough, or from a crest to a crest, okay, because those are the easiest waves. Longitudinal waves, we'll do it from the beginning of a compression to the beginning of the next compression, the middle of a compression, middle of compression, all depends, okay. Remember that with a longitudinal wave of sound, your particles move parallel to the direction of motion, and we're still moving energy from one place to another, okay? What's important, remember when we did the calculations, like the one with the sonar, please be careful with echoes. And if you remember last week's multiple choice question that I gave you, the challenge that I set for you was that you've got to look at echoes. Remember, they've got to travel there and back. That's the important thing that you get. So your distance must be doubled or halved depending on what the question asks. Or they could ask you about time, but you must either double it or half it depending on what they've asked you. Okay, that's the important thing with echoes. And we did a little bit last thing quickly on ultrasound, sonar, and echolocation, because those are important applications of sound. And I think, Ty, that is me done for today. Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, I just want to say, on behalf of everyone on the page, thank you so much, Tracy. And guys, up next, we've got Indy, who's been taking the grade 11s. And guys, I want to also say a quick thank you to Liberty for sponsoring the show. And guys, stay tuned. Keep speaking to each other, help each other out. Like Kashifa, she's always there. She's there to help you guys out. I'm here to help you guys out as well. So guys, post those questions, speak to each other. That's why the platform is there. So guys, again, I cannot stress how important it is for you guys to talk to each other. It's a fun platform. You guys are meant to have fun on this page. So guys, talk. Tell your friends to tell a friend to come through to Mindset Learn. Learn extra. All right, guys. See you soon.